name is Darlene Rondeau, and I'm the Vice President, Best Practices for Leonardo's online merchandising group, and I'm going to be your host for today's special event. First of all, welcome to everyone around the globe, and to those for whom it's the middle of the night, and for some of you it is, a special thank you. In this webinar today, we're going to explore the differences between building your own website versus licensing a website for your B&B or Inn. And we're going to discuss the pros and cons of both and leave you with a helpful checklist of questions to help you determine the right choice for your property. A few housekeeping items before we begin. First, we're going to be recording the webinar, and at the conclusion of today's session, we're going to be sending you a thank you for joining us email with a link to that recording, which you can share or listen to again at your leisure. Additionally, you have a questions dialog box in your GoToMeeting panel, and I see that some of you have already found it. So as we move through our discussion today, please feel free to send in your questions, and we'll address them throughout the webinar as well as at the end of the presentation. We're also going to be tweeting during today's discussion, so please feel free to join in the conversation at #LeoWebinar. I'd like to introduce our sponsor for today's event, Janice Hurley Hollis. Janice is a 13-year veteran of the B&B industry, and she started with bedandbreakfast.com in 2002 and was actually part of the team that moved the company to Austin, Texas. Janice has worked with thousands of properties around the world, helping them market their properties through bedandbreakfast.com and with their own websites. Janice first opened the first international office for the company in Marseille, France, and worked in growing the international exposure for the industry. And from 2012 to 14, she managed a 12-room inn and event center in central Vermont. And it's her passion for the industry that brought her back to bedandbreakfast.com. Our other special guest today is a B&B proprietor himself, Bob Tubbs. Bob owns the Cedars of Willamsburg Bed and Breakfast. He and his wife are corporate escapees who run their B&B in Williamsburg, Virginia. But I'm going to let Bob tell his own story in just a little bit because he tells it so much better than I do. So before we begin, as we do with all of our webinars, we launch a poll to the audience because we want to understand from you the answer to this question, which is, what is your biggest question about building versus licensing a website? And so just hit the radio button that corresponds to your answer that most closely matches what it is that's top of mind for you, and we will take that into consideration as we move through our discussion today so that we can really answer the question, well, this is unusual that there's an even 50-50 split between understanding the difference between the two and not sure what is most cost effective. So I'll just give everybody a couple more minutes to weigh in. Well, the disposition of the results is changing a little bit. So tied for first place is I really don't understand the difference between the two, and the third answer, which is no expertise to keep up with changes in digital marketing. So thanks, everybody. We are going to close the poll and continue with our discussion today. Before we hear from Bob, I want to share some insights of our current online landscape to set the stage about why, first of all, you need to own your website, regardless of the approach you take to making that happen. Practically every other person on the planet uses the internet today for everything from research to socializing and naturally for shopping and booking travel. And having a visually appealing, high-functioning website is not something that's nice to have today. It's really essential. It's hard to imagine anything changing with the frequency that Google changes their algorithms, but then their mission actually is to continue to provide search results that match what the consumer is looking for. And worldwide, there are over 130 billion web searches each month, and more than 85% of today's travelers start their search online. So search engines are part of the magic to getting your hotel found on the web in the first place. And some of the essential factors that impact SEO are the quality and quantity of your website content, whether or not you're mobile optimized, your social media presence, and of course, the links and keywords that are used by consumers to find you. In fact, in a couple of weeks, later in February, we're going to be having another webinar totally focused on how to get your property to the first page of search results. So please join us for that. Steve Jobs famously made a post-personal computer prophecy in 2015 that became true in 2015. Mobile sales surpassed desktop sales for the first time in history. I think everyone on earth is convinced that your B&B needs a great mobile presence. Strangely, though, Google research tells us that 83% of leisure travelers have had a poor experience on a mobile travel site, and only 23% of those who encountered a mobile site that wasn't optimized actually pushed through to make that booking. That means that you're totally missing out on booking opportunities if you haven't stepped up to mobile yet. Mobile optimization is essential because people are accessing your property site on multiple devices, not just on computers. And the website should look its best for whatever platform the travel shoppers are choosing to view it on. You've just heard the magnitude of how consumers have adopted the use of technology and how they're using it. So why do you need your own website anyways? Well, you have a greater chance of being found online, particularly because of how people are shopping for travel, desperately looking for the story that matches their needs. And the smartest way to engage these B&B shoppers is by showing them the right content. Leonardo powers the visual display of many of the world's largest travel brands and websites around the globe. Last year, we analyzed more than 500 million pieces of media because we wanted to learn more about what shoppers cared about. Our research revealed that rooms are the #1 most viewed image, 2 times more popular than the next category, which is restaurants. The other interesting thing to note is that they're more likely to book your property when it's accompanied by photos and detailed information about your inn that conveys the anticipated experience. You see, travelers are looking for more than just a place to sleep, as you guys know. They're looking for an experience that includes where they're going to eat, what they're going to find down the road, where they're going to shop, and so on. And providing information to potential guests takes time, and you're not always available since you're actually busy running your business. So a website really helps with that. And lastly, you need a website because people want to share on social channels, and you need to make your property available for referencing in these online reviews. So lots of good reasons why. And Lucia in our audience is anxious to get to the pros and cons of building a website versus licensing one. Well, we are going to get to that right now, Lucia, so thanks for weighing in. There are a lot of analogies that people use to describe the difference between building your own website or licensing a templated or already designed one. It's actually not that much different than building a house versus buying one that's already built, or renting an apartment versus buying a condo, or leasing a car versus buying a car. The point is that there are options available to you, but there are differences, and our job today is to provide you with some guidance so that you choose the option that's right for you. So first off, when you license a website, you don't own the actual software, but you license it from someone who actually built it and then maintains it for you. I can't speak for all companies who offer website licensing, but I will point out the essentials that are or should be offered in most license agreements. So let's take this scenario. You don't own the software. So if you fall out of love with your tech company and decide to part ways, you will not have a website to take with you. But that doesn't mean you don't own the assets. So you still own your photos and videos and virtual tours. You own the stories you've created, all those special offers, your client relationships, any social media applications that you have like Facebook. Also, it's a myth that if you change websites, you lose all of your Google indexing. And this is something really important to be clear on. There's something called the 301 redirect strategy that tells Google that your links are still alive, but they're living in a new location, which mitigates the risk of having broken links until Google re-indexes your new site. And for those who have questions, deeper questions on that, because that's a big topic in and of itself, please reach out to us. We'd be happy to have those conversations with you. The website in a licensed agreement is hosted and maintained by technology experts who've developed the user interface using best practices in website design, which include leading the shopper through the booking path. Generally speaking, they offer storage and a way for you to manage your digital content, also known as a content management system or CMS, and this is typically part of the license. It includes analytics or access to third-party analytics like Google. They can be integrated with internet booking engines like reservation that's offered by bed and breakfast. They may support unlimited web pages. Some have constraints as to, or limits as to how many pages you can have, but generally speaking, that is not the case. There's back-end architecture that makes it easy for search engine robots to find, scan, and index your website, and indexing is another word for getting you ranked on the page. Typically offers prepackaged themes or templates. Some companies do custom design at a premium cost. There's access to customer support. Mobile websites are available with or without charge. Social integration is also possible with or without charge. And then lastly, licensing a website offers a contract that locks price into place, and a lot of people find that very alluring. So by contrast, what does it mean when I build my own website? Well, first of all, it's yours, lock, stock, and barrel. So all of your time, money, and effort that you've invested in creating your website from scratch can never be taken away. That said, building your own is not without its costs as well, just like building your own house isn't. You must decide, are you going to spend the time and effort creating your website, or are you going to hire someone? So you can go, and I know people who have gone both routes. If you're doing it yourself, there's likely a learning curve involved and training time to keep up to date, as opposed to hiring a webmaster who already knows all this stuff. In either case, you're going to need a content management system. WordPress is an example. It has a free content management system. You're going to have to design or choose a theme and work with your, if you're doing it yourself, or work with your webmaster to design and choose a theme. And there are, you need to buy a URL or domain name, which you have to do in either case. Whether you license a website or you build your own, you need to have your own domain name. You need to select a hosting platform for your website that's either shared or managed. There should be a backup process in place, and there are lots of companies that offer that kind of platform. Amazon has a backup S3 program in place, as does Dropbox. You need to ensure your site is secure and safe from spammers. Again, integration with a booking engine like reservation is really important. There should be a maintenance program in place whereby systematically, or someone is checking for broken links, staying current with search engine optimization updates like the Google algorithm changes that I was talking about earlier. And as we also just talked about, you really have to have a mobile optimized website, either adaptive or responsive. And you need to ensure you're plugged into the social networks that your guests are on. And of course, lastly, you need to have tracking in place so that you can tell what's working and what's not working. So those are the two scenarios that you have here. Now I want to share with you what a good website should look like, regardless of which approach you take for building your website. All best practice websites should have the following characteristics at the very minimum. So first of all, it should be visually driven with edge-to-edge viewing, and that means that the visuals take up the entire screen, using big, bold photos with alluring captions and short descriptions that describe what it is you're offering. talked about mobile a couple of times. Your website needs to be mobile optimized, either adaptive and responsive, either or. Shoppers should be clearly led down the booking path with Book Now buttons at every turn so that when they're ready to reserve a room, the booking button is presented on the screen in the best practice positioning. Packages and promotions are a great way to close the deal and should be easily and quickly updated to drive business when you need it. So, online consumers today are hypersensitive to buying with confidence, and it makes a great deal of sense that you create trust by being helpful and transparent, and you can do that on your website. Travel is also a fun thing to do. Even if your guest is a business traveler, they're going to appreciate being entertained with authentic stories. And you guys are ambassadors in your community, so sharing local suggestions about what's around in the area are always welcome. And the other thing, in addition to being helpful, they make you stand out and people remember that. You see, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. Whole Foods doesn't sell groceries, they sell health and wellness. Lululemon doesn't sell activewear. Just look at the retail tags on their clothing. They tell you why they made that particular garment. So now I'm going to reintroduce Bob Tubbs, and Bob is going to start with telling you about his story. Bob?
Well, hello, and thank you, Darlene. Appreciate the opportunity to talk about this and have me back for this conversation. As Darlene mentioned, Grace and I are corporate escapees. We spent about 20 years passing each other in airports. I play a lot of racquetball back at home and still play now. I had a crew back there, and one couple always talked about buying an old house in the Finger Lakes area of upstate New York and doing the bed and breakfast thing. Well, Grace heard one too many of those stories when Xerox was being particularly interesting, and so I came home from racquetball one night, and she said, I found a place in Willamsburg. I want to go talk to the owners. And I found a B&B in Willamsburg. I want to go talk to the owners, and my first response was, why are we interested in Brooklyn? Because there's a suburb in Brooklyn, New York called Willamsburg. And what is a B&B? Is that something that you graduate to after you get out of A&A? Alcoholics Anonymous. So, but we came down, talked to the owners, decided we had sold some properties, so we decided to make the purchase, hired somebody to run it for us, and a few months later, Xerox had a reduction in force. She took a package, my group got disbanded, so we decided to go to Plan B&B, and now 14 years later, I'm in charge as long as I do everything she tells me to do.
I like that, Plan B&B.
Yeah, and it's been working so far. So living in Williamsburg has a lot of benefits, and we enjoy it a lot. One of the things I did at Xerox is I was a digital strategist in the early days, and so I had started and founded an Internet Marketing Association in 1994, and with that background and experience, I was able to apply some of that to what our first iteration of websites, which was at the time it was state of the art, and actually this website worked for me for almost 12 years. But which is unheard of in today's technology, but that just meant that we did the right investments up front, which is a critical element of what you need to think about. Technology comes and goes, but you need one of the key benefits of licensing is that the onus for the challenge for me with this website that you see here was the onus on keeping up with the technology was on me. So Google came along and changed algorithms. Mobile came along, smartphones and tablets. All of those things I could not have foreseen as being needed, early on when we put this website together. There was social media limitations were there, so on and so forth. So over time, even though I had a compelling offering, tons of content, many people saying I had an excellent website, I was being technologically squeezed to consider other approaches, and licensing from my corporate experience was always a much more better approach for all the reasons I just mentioned. I personally didn't have to either hire somebody or keep up with everything that goes on, which can take a lot of your time, and especially if you're owning and operating your own business. Sometimes we just don't have the time or the ability to keep up with everything that's changing. Meanwhile, your corporate licensing partner, it's incumbent upon them to do that, because if they're not going to stay up with what's going on, they're going to lose market share. And you, as a website licensee, are going to start finding other solutions to replace them. So it just the market competitiveness makes it licensing, again, that much more attractive. So, and then there was all the linkages, all the websites that came up, all the the Orbitses and the Travelocities and the bedandbreakfast.coms. So having a third-party infrastructure site was, and linkage to that is absolutely critical, because the last thing I remember early on, I would sign up to these sites, and I found myself managing content on all of these sites all of the time was just very time-consuming. So finding a solution that has integration into GDS and other services like that, that then GDS is a general distribution system that does the linkages for you to these large sites. So I think, those are things that, and then for us, what we did is I am very involved with the local Chamber of Commerce, and as a result, I became a student of what our business and marketing strategies were for just as a destination. And I would very much link to and follow what the region was doing as an investment. Here in Williamsburg, we have Colonial Williamsburg, we have Jamestown and Yorktown, we have Busch Gardens, which has Water Country USA, and Busch Gardens Europe. So we needed to come up with a strategy, the region needed to come up with a strategy to bring all of these parties together. And I needed to be able to have my website, because they're investing millions of dollars into marketing. I'm investing hundreds of dollars. So my strategy was to dovetail on what the marketing was going to be and make sure that I supported it and linked into it, and that my keywords were a second or third level down. So I'm actually getting the added benefit of all those marketing dollars in our small room bed and breakfast.
And I love, Bob, the story you told about, this is what, the George Washington room?
Yes, this is our George Washington room. All of our rooms, like I mentioned, we have 10 rooms, all named after historical characters that relate to the time that Williamsburg is known for historically. Now, the only thing about the George Washington that I mentioned to guests is George used to grind his teeth at night, so we're occasionally finding slivers in the pillows from time to time. But they are worth something on eBay, so there is a benefit to looking there. But you can see each room has this George Washington. Each of our rooms have a different look and feel, and to the point that was made, the pictures, visually compelling content supported by, the keyword embedment and all of those kinds of things are just going to make it that much easier for people to make decisions. Just in the time that this webinar is going, I've had 3 bookings come through via email. Wow. The website is just, it's when they find us, that plus the coupling of the reviews that we have from bedandbreakfast.com and other sites, people, they get an impression, it's supported. The steps are, they get an impression, it's supported by the fact that there's a compelling website there, compelling content, and then there's guests that are telling them, you got to go do it. It's just a wonderful experience. So that married with what's going on at the macro level for, you know, regional marketing and things like that. If you can do, and then get the feedback and respond to the feedback. I make it a point to, within a day or so, receiving a review from people, good, bad, or indifferent. Fortunately, most of them are good. To respond to them, to thank them for their comments, and the fact that they took the time to do that, and acknowledge that, because it's a front to back thing, and the guests walk away with a very solid appreciation. We get a 1 in 4 return rate very consistently. So
wow.
25%.
And it really completes the whole experience, right? So they've had a great experience, you know, before, when they're on property, and then that communication after the fact just brings it full circle, I think.
Right, and then, you know, the other thing is with discretion, we have individual communications. Like, fortunately, within my system, I know, because I've captured it, I know when it's their birthday, for example, or their anniversary, and I send out a little email. We like to take pictures here, so, you know, I'm able to personalize the stuff that I send out. For example, my brochure, every guest leaves our establishment with a trifold brochure, printed brochure in hand, with their picture on the front cover. Because I've been, you know, I take the picture at breakfast, and before they've had a chance to check out, I download it and I put it in this template, and I put their names on it, and guess who's on? They're on the front cover of every brochure, personalized brochures that go out. They're not going to throw those away. They're going to go home and show that to their friends. Hey, looky here, we're famous, that kind of stuff. So, you know, that just rounds out the experience for the guests. So the effort that goes into it here, you know, Facebook is a great tool for us. You know, I do little, like I mentioned, the photos thing. I end up uploading those to Facebook, and I can't tell you, especially if I get a young couple here for, you know, where he popped the question, or a family reunion, anniversaries, birthdays, all of those kinds of special happy life events. You know, when you can capture those in digital form and put them on social media, it's amazing on how it perpetuates through their friend base, through all of the activities, you know, that
Bob,
yes.
Can you contrast for us, now you're spending 5 to 10 hours a week updating the site and social media. Tell us what that was before, to give us a sense of the effort before and after.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to, if I wanted to add a whole new section, I mean, it probably, you know, with the constraints that I had, for example, I would have to take the imagery and take it into a photo editor and resize it, save it, then upload it and position it. It would do a lot of that kind of stuff. It would do a lot of that kind of stuff for me, because I was, you know, everything was kind of in a very constrained template.
Yep.
So, you know, it's reduced the amount of time, but exponentially increased the reach and effectiveness. So, you know, and having the links and using the social media, and I'm actually spending more time becoming a student at social media than I am at having to do, you know, manage sites. So I'm enjoying, you know, the Facebook feedback, the LinkedIn connections, all of those kinds of things. So I would highly encourage you, in addition to doing this, to, you know, become, if you enjoy using social media yourself, it just makes it that much easier.
And Bob, we have a question from the audience. Jeff wants to know, to clarify, did you build your own website before, or did you use a webmaster? I think you mentioned that.
Yeah, again, I had the benefit of having a business and marketing and technology background, so I was the architect of what needed to be done, because I had the benefit of working in multi-million-dollar budgets at Xerox to do these kinds of things. But by no means, you know, the coding I did was back in the late 80s and early 90s. So what it did was make me aware of of the process, which then translated into being able to translate the business needs into a marketing and technology base. And so I didn't do the coding, but I would say an astute user or an advanced user, which helped me a little bit.
Yeah, so you were able to provide very knowledgeable guidance to the person who was building it for you because you had that inside knowledge.
Well, right, and as all of you as B&B owners and managers, you have the business insight. That's the part I can't overstress. Often you'll have somebody come in with a technical background, and they are very good technologists, but if they will not and do not have the kind of insights that you have about the criticality of certain things, the profile of the guests that you have, and so therefore what is going to be compelling to that profile, you have to give the guidance. You have to have the marketing and business and customer at the forefront of whatever you're doing. A lot of times you'll have technology solutions that, this is the way they work everywhere, and it doesn't comprehend the nuances that's going to make you stand out over everybody else that's using it. And that's that's where the licensing software and stuff like that, having a variety of templates and having knowledgeable people like bedandbreakfast.com and other places, and Visley and Leonardo, who work in this space all the time, they end up helping you get even better. Even though you're working with it all the time, they're working on it at an aggregate level, and they're going to bring to the table, hey, did you ever think about this, or did you ever think about that? And it's just going to make the end product be that much more compelling and that much more effective.
Can you talk to us a little bit? You mentioned mobile, Bob. Talk to us a little bit about, smartphones back in my day, and I think your day, they didn't exist, right? But now they're just ubiquitous.
So the smartphones and the tablets and everything, I mean, that, as you cited about Steve Jobs, everything has moved in that direction. So, making sure that whatever you have here is just able to move into be platform independent is absolutely critical. All of the mobile sites and the apps, I can't tell you how many times somebody's on their smartphone, they decide they need to find a place to stay, and with their GPS, I'm one of the 3 or 4 or 5 places that are within 10 miles. And I mean, the sale happens so quickly. It's the spontaneity of it is what you need to be prepared for, and what your content needs to talk to. So having that, and being cognizant of that, and again, it's helpful if you're a user of these things because it gives you another level of understanding. If you use your smartphone to, let's say, go buy a dozen donuts someplace, just go through the exercise. My advice would be go through the exercise your guests do to find you to do something that you do on a regular basis.
That's good guidance.
Yeah. So, and as you said, I mean, clearly my analytics show that the mobile devices are by leaps and bounds the preferred platform that people are finding me on.
That's great. So I think you've talked to a number of these points about why you chose to go the licensed route.
Yeah, I mean, all of these, yes, all of these. If something, I can literally go from, if today there is a campaign, I get an email from the Chamber of Commerce about a campaign like a restaurant week type of thing. It literally takes me 2 to 3 minutes to create a restaurant-like-ish a supporting event or page on my website and have it up there almost. In fact, it's happened twice now. I've been up ahead of what's. It takes me less time than it takes our Chamber of Commerce to do, because of the convenience of and the interface that allows me to manage my site, and it's across the platforms. So
yeah.
The customer support is there. Several times I've made some mentions of about a few ideas about this or that technological enhancements, and often, depending on the level of development that needs to be done, I have often found, within the next release, that feature is now parcel of my service. So. And it's resulted in, quite a bit more traffic in our website. It's also resulted in a record year for 2015.
And as you mentioned, you get some nice feedback from your guests about their experience with you on the website.
Absolutely, yes. Well, the pictures help because, understand sometimes we use some props and stuff, and so we have an extortion fund. No, I'm kidding. No, but yeah. So all of this, and so it's the marriage of understanding what what the region has to offer, and if it's an opportunity, build on what's already gone from a marketing point of view. It is understanding your guests and what their needs are. I get everything from college-age students to people celebrating 65 years of marriage together, and everything in between. So, but I do have content that is appropriate for that whole spectrum, and I do try to segment things to talk to those market segments in their language.
Yeah, and I think just to recap Bob's piece, I think the things that jump out at me is you know your story the best. You know your audience the best, your market the best, and so the smart thing to do is to create that website environment with that in mind. So you know what people, right? You know what people want to see. You know what they're interested in. And so if you're telling the right story across all the platforms that they're using to find you, then that's really where you're going to see a lot of the payback. And again, for Bob, he chose to go the licensing route because for him that was the most logical thing to do.
Yeah, and I mean, like the slide says, I mean, it's critical to have the right partner, and my whole experience with everybody involved. If I was dissatisfied, I would be finding other solutions, and I have not needed to do that in several years now, or even consider it, because the customer support, the multi-platform, the investments as far as appropriate budget and execution. If as far from my money, I haven't done print advertising other than the personalized brochures. I haven't done print advertising in over a decade.
Wow.
The digital media provides me I can test a market. I can test a particular package, very quickly get response, figure out how to tweak it based on feedback. So it's a monologue instead of it's a dialogue instead of a monologue because of it. And so why would I print an ad in a paper or in a magazine anymore? Because occasionally someone might mention that they saw me someplace, but digital media, I can get the word out and I can be very targeted and specific. And even the idea of creating sub-sites or second-level sites that actually are, for example, the College of William and Mary is right across the street. College-only content that's at a second level that speaks to the parent that's bringing their child here, or the administration of the school, and so on and so forth. So I can, being able to segment is another key benefit of what you're doing.
Exactly, and that's critically important. So, and that's a different audience, right? The parents who
Yes.
are of the kids who are coming are different than the weekenders who are coming because they love American history.
Right, or Busch Gardens, or wine, or
Right.
shopping, that kind of thing, exactly.
Exactly. Exactly, exactly. Well, thanks, Bob. I know it's always really helpful to the audience to hear from someone who's been there and done that and who can speak authentically to the issue, and that's what this whole web event was about, is to help people understand the difference between building a website or licensing one. And so with that, we promised a checklist, and so I'm just going to breeze through this checklist and make sure everyone understands, regardless of the approach you take. So either build your own or license, you really should understand the answers to these questions, and these are the key things to take note of as you're considering the approach that you want to take. First of all, modern platforms today should be intuitive, and they shouldn't require hours and hours of training if you're going to do it yourself. And of course, these digital marketing systems should be able to be accessible from anywhere. So you should be able to manage your website, whether you're on site at the property or you're visiting your kids in a different city. You should be able to do it from wherever you are. How you present your content and tell your story along the way impacts purchase intent in a very meaningful way, which leads to the transactions that everybody wants. And Bob was talking about, telling a different story to the parents of the college kids versus his other guests. How you present that and describe what you have to offer to these people matters. We talked about being very visually engaging with big photos and videos and virtual tours. And they should also be accompanied by rich descriptions and eye-catching captions. So you can stand out, and with the rich descriptions, you can really lure someone to choose you. The ability to integrate with a booking engine of your choice should be a consideration. We talked several times about mobile. Mobile optimized websites should be included in whatever it is you're paying for, whether that's a license or building your own, and not an add-on charge. It's 2016, mobile's here, so it should be included, and you should have a choice between an adaptive design or a responsive design, or the ability to choose both. And there are lots of reasons why you would want to choose one or the other, or have both. And again, we'd be happy to talk to you more about that. Again, at no additional charge. The solutions should absolutely be smart in terms of search engine optimization. So it should have all that logic built into the back end. A content management system is required because you need to store and manage all your digital assets, your photos, your videos, your virtual tours, your promotions. All of those things need to be stored somewhere in a central place. You should be able to plug into Google Analytics or another reporting module. Google is the most popular, or another module, because you need to understand what's working and what isn't. A variety of social media plugins you should be connected to. So whatever social channel your guests are on, you should have those plugins right on your website. And Bob talked about updating content in real time. That's really important, because if a promotion pops up or something happens in the area and you want to take advantage of that and leverage that, you need to be able to update this content in real time, and it should be across all the channels. So with the hit of the enter button, you should be able to make those updates on your own website, on your TripAdvisor site, if you're listed there, on Facebook, etc. And then having someone to lean on who can help if you need it is also really important. So these are the dozen or so things that, as I said, regardless of which path you take, you need to consider these. So as we do always, I want to launch an another poll, and we'd like to know from you, based on what you heard today, will you attend a future webinar? And your answer to this question is for sure I will, I don't know, or not likely. And this helps us understand if the content that we presented to you was helpful, do we need to change it, and so we are, I'm going to let everyone weigh in for a couple of minutes, and by and large, everybody was happy with what they heard today. Some folks are saying, not sure, so we will continue to honor that feedback and try and provide content that is the kind of thing that you're looking for and that is helpful to you in your business. Way back in the early 1900s, when Henry Ford set out to democratize the car, he said, I'm going to build a car for the multitude so that every person who wanted one could afford one. That was the objective when we launched our digital marketing platform we call Visly, which makes it possible for virtually everyone to have an affordable website that not only looks and feels like a custom product, but importantly impacts conversions in a very real way. Cedars of Willamsburg is a client who takes visual storytelling to that next level, as you saw and heard from Bob today. And their website certainly pops out as an environment that engages travel shoppers because they've created relevant, powerful visual stories about the property. Bob also gave us his perspective on licensing versus his experience of building his own website, telling us that it's actually no additional work to build or maintain actual multiple versions of their website for the desktop, mobile, and in real time, and it happens much faster and is more cost effective. So here is an opportunity to set yourself apart from the competition so that the shopper chooses your property with the certainty that it's the right choice for them. So as I said earlier, we have some other webinars coming up in a couple of weeks. We have one on search engine optimization, and we are also going to send you an email, a follow-up email, thanking you for your time and your attention today with a recording of the webinar so that you can share with your colleagues or listen again at your convenience. So at this point, there are a couple of questions that have come in. One is that someone's asking about leasing a website. When you say you're not happy with your host, what happens if you go to a different host? Well, as we talked about up front, you own all of your assets. What you don't own is the actual website itself. So if you did fall out of love with your tech company, you still can take all of the assets that you do have, so that's all your photos, videos, virtual tours, special offers, all those client relationships, the social media applications, all the historical reporting that you have, all of that you take with you, and then you move to another site. And what I said up front, and again, it's important to emphasize this, is that there is a redirect strategy with Google where you tell the search engine, yes, my website is still out there, my links are still alive, but there's a new location that they're living in. And so there is an absolute way to migrate from one website to another website without losing traction. And so that's often a question that we get from folks. So thanks for asking because it is an important thing to clarify. So at this point, thank you everyone for your time and attention today. Thank you, Janice, for sponsoring our discussion today. Bedandbreakfast.com is a terrific organization, and as Bob said, you guys do such great work for all your members. So thanks for joining us. We really appreciate your support. Bob Tubbs, as always, entertaining, informative, and always great to have you on our events because I think your personal experiences really help our audience understand what's possible for them, and it's always good to hear what someone else has been through, so we always really appreciate hearing from you. So thanks, everybody. Today is Thursday, which is the new Friday. So have a good long weekend. Get a good start on your weekend, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.